So, hi, I just wanted to check in because I got a lot of questions, not a lot, but a few emails um, last week about the reference page, and then this week about the handing in your paper. How long does it have to be? What's going on with that? So I wanted to answer those questions. So some questions I got about the reference page, which again goes at the end of your paper, is it okay to use links? And the short answer is yes. Depending on what your article is, like you might have to use a link, and that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can talk about some other things as well. Okay, so this week you are handing in, I'm looking more for the format, but what you're handing in and what you should be working on is like a first draft of your final paper. And so that means you're putting everything together. So what we've been doing is we've been doing this paper in steps. So you should already have your introduction. And so you want to go back to those first assignments, your research proposal, your question, and then, look at your outline so you can get your thesis together. You want to have your body paragraphs or the body of your paper. So you want to look at, go refer back to that outline, but certainly you are incorporating the usable pieces of your literature review. That's why we did it. And then you're going to add that last assignment on there, which is, your analysis and discussion and some form of a conclusion. So you have all of those things. And so now you're just kind of putting it together and making it pretty, giving me a cohesive argument. So that final paper that's due on May 2nd has to be 10 pages, 10 full pages. So you should shoot to hand in 10 full pages this week. And so again, I'm not grading those full pages. I'm not looking at the overall, it's a rough draft. What I'm looking at is that you're formatted correctly and that you're set up in terms of how your title page should look and how your reference page should look. And if you decide to include headers, how that should look. So that's what I'm looking for this week. So I don't want you to go into a panic about writing 10 pages, although you should be working on that. It's more, you're not writing 10 pages from scratch. You're kind of putting together all these things that we've already done. I also want to say I apologize for not answering emails toward the end of the week. I'm getting over some kind of cold or something nasty, and so I just wasn't able to answer emails. So if your reference page did or did not include links, it's all good. I'll just grade it. Particularly if you asked me that question because I didn't get back to you because I wasn't feeling well. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is that these citations, and we as a class, we've gotten a lot better, but citations tend to be, particularly for APA, tend to be a little bit more tricky, and I think some of us are still collapsing MLA citations with APA citations. So I've posted videos, I've done all this stuff, but I wanted to give you one more thing as you kind of go in and look at your paper. So here's my last thing on APA citations. So there are two forms of citations, in-text citations that you can do for an APA paper. One is a parenthetical, which comes at the, which kind of is in the paragraph, and then one is like a narrative citation. So a parenthetical, like you say your paraphrase or whatever, and then you put the citation after you say your paraphrase or after you do your quote. A narrative citation actually comes before you do your paraphrase or before you do your quote. And you pick one or the other. You don't have to do both. So I want to kind of talk about that. So I'll post this for you, but I just want to go over the example. So they have two formats in text citations, parenthetical and narrative. So in parenthetical citations, the author name and publication date appear in parentheses. And again, it appears after you use the paraphrase or quotation. In narrative citations, the author name is incorporated into the text as a part of the sentence, and the year follows in parentheses. And so I just wanted to point out the difference. So here is my reference. So here's my author, here's the title, here's the publication year. And you only have to focus on the publication year. You don't have to include the month in the day. Just the year is enough. Uh, and some other things that you guys are doing, you don't necessarily have to include the title of the article, nor do you have to include the author's full name. Like that's not required always in APA citation, particularly if it makes your sentence clunky or if it makes your sentence read awkward. It is perfectly fine just to refer to the author by his or her last name. And it's okay to do that because that's really all you have. Like you would have to go in and kind of like, it's okay. Like the first name is not even listed in the reference. It's just, you know, the initial. So it's fine to just refer to the author by their last name. So here's my example of a narrative citation for, let's start with the paraphrase because it's easier. So Goodman, here's my author, here's the publication year 2020, believes that there are numerous health disparities between rich and poor communities that place poor communities at a disadvantage. These disparities include lack of access to health providers, lack of insurance, and overall lack of how to navigate the bureaucracy of the healthcare system. So this is a paraphrase. I know it's a paraphrase because here's the author. You're giving me the publication date, and this is serving as your citation, right? So this is a narrative citation. I do it in the front end. A parenthetical citation comes on the back end of the paraphrase. So same thing, right? I take out Goodman because it's going to come in the back end. There are numerous health disparities between rich and poor communities, the same paraphrase. When I come out of it, it's going to be Goodman and then a comma and then the publication year. Again, you do one or the other. So for a paraphrase, if I have a narrative citation, once I'm done with that paraphrase, I don't have to close it out with another citation. Like I'm done. It's clear that that is a narrative citation, that that's not me as a writer. And again, this is a parenthetical citation. So which one you choose depends on how you write. Like, so lots of you do like to introduce your source with the author's last name. And if that's the case, just make it into a narrative citation and then take out, my dog is bothering me, and then take out the parenthetical citation because you don't need both. You're going to do one or the other. All right, so that's for paraphrase. I'm going to move on and talk about one for a quote. And so this is an example of a narrative citation for a quote here. So Goodman 2020, and that's the publication year, believes that there are numerous health disparities between rich and poor communities that place poor communities at a disadvantage. According to Goodman, and here's a comma, here's my quote. I know it's a quote because it's in quotation marks. And I come out and I have an MP here. So if you're going to use a quote, you need a locator. And the locator is usually the page number or NP. So NP stands for no page number. So generally, if you're using an online source, you're probably going to have that citation after the quote be NP for no page number, unless you can find a page number. And that's fine. So here it is. And so if it were, or if it was a page number, if I could locate it, it would just be the page number. That's it. I also want to point out here that the first time I use Goodman, I get the publication year, which is my narrative citation. Here I'm using Goodman again. I do not have to give the publication year again because it's pretty clear that I'm still referring to Goodman. So you want to do that narrative citation. So general rule of thumb is like if you do it once in a paragraph and you're referring to the same author, if you give a signal phrase, according to Goodman, Goodman believes, you don't have to keep doing that same narrative citation. I know it's Goodman. Now, if you mention another author, in that same paragraph, you do want to give the narrative citation because it's no longer Goodman. All right, so that is an example of a narrative citation for a quote. And here's an example of a parenthetical citation for a quote. So again, you don't do both, you choose one or the other. So here I just begin with the quote. It's in quotation marks, it's the same exact thing. I just made the whole thing a quote. And so when I come out of it, because Goodman doesn't introduce it, because I don't begin with the narrative citation, I have to have the parenthetical citation. So it would be Goodman, the publication year, and MP, which stands for no page. Or if I have a page number, that's pretty clear. It would be Goodman, comma, the publication year, and then page, whatever it is, 45. and that would be it. This is the simplest way to explain it. And I'm not saying anything that I don't think the video said or like the websites I've been sending you have said. But I figured it wouldn't hurt to do it one more time. So as you go in and you kind of do your citations, like figure this out. So again, if your sentence reads clunky, you can take out the title and just go with the author's last name. And then if you choose to. But if it's a narrative citation, if you begin with that author, it has to be a narrative citation. Like you have to have that year, publication year behind the author. So it might be easier, depending on how you write or how you set up your textual support, to have a parenthetical citation as opposed to a narrative citation. So it just depends on what's easier. All right, so I'm going to stop my share. So that's pretty much it. You are just putting things together, working on your format, making sure that your citations are good and clear. And the citations are important because it tells me like when you're speaking, when someone else is speaking. There's so many voices in a research paper. It's really helpful for me to understand who's saying what. Uh, and again, for this 10-page paper, I don't, you're handing in your entire paper, but it's the first draft. I'm sorry, and I'm not looking over it. So it's the first draft that I'm just concentrating on the format, but you're still working on that draft to be able to hand it in on May 2nd. All right, so I will get back to you. That's my, if you need to see me, if you need to talk to me, be sure just to reach out and email me, and I will get back to you. But again, you're really close to done, so hang in there. Take care.